Wednesday, April 3rd. Welcome to a little midweek wake up with Damon and Larry. It's great to have you here. Hit like and subscribe. We got all your latest 49ers news, even in a slow news week. Larry, we got some news that pertains possibly to the 49ers to start today's show off with. Before we take a look around the rest of the Bay Area sports world, it is always Niners first, or in this case, NFL transaction first. Good morning. Have you seen Stefon Diggs has been traded?
I just was informed by you that that Mr. Diggs is no longer a Buffalo Bill and that he's a Houston Texan. And I'll tell you, my first thought before even knowing what the what the transaction includes is that, man, the Houston Texans are building a very good football team.
Yeah, they are.
And they're coming. I mean, they are absolutely coming as a football team. I mean, if you think about the Texans and CJ Stroud and all the talent that they've been able to accumulate. And then they added Joe Mixon at running back. They added a lot to their defense, including Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, Folorunso Fadakazi,
3 corners, Danielle Hunter, Mixon, Diggs, adding to a Nico Collins, Tank Dell offense with CJ Stroud. Yeah, Texans just got really interesting, didn't they?
12 free agents they've signed on the defensive side alone, and now they've added Stefon Diggs to go with Joe Mixon. And if you look at it, CJ Stroud now has Mixon in the backfield, Dalton Schultz at tight end. He has Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs, and Nico Collins at wide receiver. Those are amazing.
Yeah.
Wide receivers. He's got Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. I mean, they've got
Schultz is their tight end, pretty damn good, right?
They've got a hell of a team. I mean, those 3 receivers are terrific. Then they've also got John Mechie, they've got Robert Woods, they've got Xavier Hutchinson. I mean, they've got some talent there, some real talent. So Houston is coming. If I was Kansas City, if I was Baltimore, if I was one of these AFC powers, I'd keep a real close eye on the Texans and even the Niners. I mean, I think the Texans are building a bully. Azeez Al-Shaair, Danielle Hunter on the defensive front. A bunch of guys on the back end. Yeah, they're coming, man. They're absolutely coming. What were the details of the trade?
Well, here's the thing. Any and all, talk of anything that the 49ers might do, it all goes back and links directly to what happens with Brandon Aiyuk. When you look at this Stefon Diggs transaction, maybe it illuminates what the 49ers can really expect if they do try to trade Brandon Aiyuk. So the Bills are sending 4-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans for draft pick compensation. Along with Diggs, the Texans get a 2024 6th rounder and a 2025 5th rounder. The Buffalo Bills, they get back a 2025 2nd rounder. So it's
not even a pick this year,
a future 2nd rounder. Wow. And they had to put change in to get Diggs moved to Houston as well. So what that does to the Brandon Aiyuk value, I don't know. Here's what Brandon Aiyuk has over Stefon Diggs. He's 4 years younger than Diggs. Diggs is the better decorated, better, more produced player about to cross a 10,000-yard career receiving threshold. I mean, Diggs is a real good wide receiver, and I don't know if Brandon Aiyuk is quite that. So as the 49ers are thinking, what are we going to do? Are we going to pay this guy $28-30 million to come back, or are we seriously going to try to get some value for him? The value that you thought you might get for him, I think just went down a little bit, Larry. If Stefon Diggs isn't getting you a number 1 in this year's draft, I don't see Brandon Aiyuk doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and yet Aiyuk is an all-pro receiver. He means a lot. It's really hard to put your hands around the value of receivers in today's NFL game. You've got teams that don't want to pay them, then you have teams that are trading for them. I don't know what to say. Every year, I mean, look at the free agents that are still available. I mean, there was a rumor yesterday that we'll get to later about Tyler Boyd to the Niners. There's a lot of good receivers still available in free agency. It's a loaded free agent draft. It's a loaded wide receiver draft, I should say, and there's a loaded wide receiver group in free agency. So, I mean, there's a lot of inventory out there, and yet, there's always going to be a market for the top guys. Aiyuk is one of the top guys, but yeah, what's the value? Does that mean that the Niners can't get a first? Does that mean that the Niners? I mean, who knows? I mean, um, there's a lot of different ways to play your hand. I was looking at it yesterday, thinking about Tyler Boyd, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if you took out Aiyuk and you put in Tyler Boyd, and you got a draft pick that you liked for Aiyuk, and you could turn Aiyuk into either an offensive lineman or another wide receiver that you liked, is Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, who, big, strong, powerful, fast, and Tyler Boyd equal one Brandon Aiyuk? And then it also kind of made me think, man, the Niners situation, you're going to be paying your quarterback 50 times what you paid over 50 times maybe what you paid your quarterback this year. And that means that there's going to have to be some serious bloodletting, and it's going to be painful. So maybe this idea of we're having this back and forth debate this entire offseason, Debo or Aiyuk or Debo. Is it possible the answer is both? Is it possible that they part ways from Aiyuk right here in the draft and then part ways with Debo next offseason and try to go cheaper at wide receiver? It seems like that might be the way to go when you look at the inventory coming out of college and in the free agent market.
But it's tough to serve two masters. And you can either go all in on 2024, or you can start making, like you're suggesting, Larry, the moves that are down the chessboard, where you're thinking 2 moves down the road, 2 seasons down the road, more than just this 1 year. And I just think that the 49ers got to be focused on 2024, with 2025 and everything after that kind of in the bedamned category. Like, this is it. Like, the new reality of the math that's coming at you is going to come whether you put it off or you don't. So I think you just got to function under 2024 and the luck that you still have with Brock Purdy being on such a rookie deal. And you act accordingly, and you don't deal with 2025 until it gets here, because it's now or never. I mean, with this group as it is built, here it is. This is the last shot. This is the best last shot under this math that the 49ers get at winning a Super Bowl. After that, you are so back to the drawing board. If you're even thinking of flushing 2 wide receivers, you're right back to the starting of the, you're installing a new offense basically, because Shanahan is brutal on his rookie wide receivers. So
I hear you, but you're paying your quarterback next year 50 times what you're paying him right now. So most likely. So, if you got to come up with 50, let's say roughly $45 million of cap savings, who are you going to pull? And it's not going to be Trent. So Armstead's gone. He made 17.4 base, I believe. So he's gone. You're going to have to be real creative. It's not going to be Bosa. It's not going to be McCaffrey. Fred Warner, Kittle, Greenlaw. I mean, Greenlaw's hurt right now.
This way, all names that you'd think would be on the untouchable list become touchable in 2025.
Well, I just think that if you look at it, if you really look at their names of guys who make big money, and do you want to do this all in 1 year? Do you want to try to? I don't know that they want to take years off. I don't know that they want to just drive the thing off the cliff. They may want to try to do this over a 2-year period. But Trent, these are the guys who make the big cake. Trent, Debo, Armstead, who's gone, Ward, Bosa, McCaffrey, Aiyuk, Warner, Kittle. Those guys are the guys who make the big money for the most part. Those guys all make, over a cap hit of over 10 million.
Right.
Give me 2 of those guys. You are outside of Armstead, who's 1. Give me 2 more guys on that list that you feel like you can do without. And I think most people would look at that and say, well, man, that's tough. Kittle, Warner, McCaffrey, Mooney, Trent. I think it's the wide receivers. as much as I like Debo, as much as I like Aiyuk, I think it's the wide receivers. I think if they wanted to, they could figure out the wide receiver game without their 2-star wide receivers and not be crushed by it.
Well, I mean, we're right back to the oldest concept in the book that football's blocking and tackling and everything else just sells tickets. By saying everything else just sells tickets, you're basically saying, well, that's easier to reproduce, right? It's easier to reproduce a great wide receiver than it is a great offensive or defensive lineman. And the 49ers have had an awful lot of success, becoming a dominant team on the line of scrimmage and then figuring it out everywhere else. And maybe they can do that. And maybe Brock Purdy turning into that guy that is worthy of a $45 million a year contract or whatever he's going to get paid is the difference there. When you have a quarterback that is worth that level of money, by definition, he's supposed to make, normal wide receivers a little touch better than normal wide receivers. So an awful lot of this pressure is going to come down on Brock to live up to the new contract once he finally gets it installed. But then can he? Can he actually do it? Is Brock Purdy the kind of guy who's going to make everyone around him? Or has there been a little bit of an illusion where the talent of the 49ers are making us think Brock is more than he really is? And now we're back to the debate that we were having at the beginning of last season, and who to trust and what do we believe and who's really responsible for whose success. And it just, the carousel never stops, Larry.
Well, I think I think it's false to say that that quarterbacks make the weapons. I think you have to have real weapons. But my point is, you might be able to find weapons that are similar to what you have in the draft if you draft well, or in free agency if you sign well. Even at this point, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Was Tyler Boyd flirtation about Juwan Jennings because they both play the slot receiver? I don't know. But the way I look at it, I think that the talk about Aiyuk staying is more about, hey, we love the player, and we're just going to keep saying we love the player. And there's no advantage in saying that they don't love the player. And also, when you
the player, they should,
and they should, and they do. And also, if you're really trying to get a first round pick out of somebody, the last thing you want to say is, yeah, we're looking to move them. We don't love them. They love, they're stating their love for Aiyuk. But I think it's going to lead to a draft day trade unless they get absolutely no good offers. And for a receiver like Aiyuk, I think they probably will get, a mid first to a late first round pick offer, even if, because he represents a guy whose best years are still ahead of him, who does all the things right. He blocks downfield. He's a team guy. He shows up to win. He's got a body that's going to play for the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think that you said what's going on here. I think they're going to move their receivers. I think they're going to move Aiyuk this year, and I think there's a good chance they move off of Debo next year.
So Tyler Boyd, who's been with the Cincinnati Bengals, he's 29 years old. He's found himself linked to the 49ers as a possible Brandon Aiyuk replacement, if that's the direction that they go in. He might be the plan to replace Aiyuk with an experienced wide receiver. Again, just asking a plug-and-play rookie to come on in and be Brandon Aiyuk is a huge ask. You got to get somebody in here who's done it at some capacity, I think, professionally. One player, Brandon Aiyuk, might want as much as $30 million. You can get a guy like Tyler Boyd in for around $10 or $12 million would probably be the expectation there. So
maybe less.
Yeah, and here's the thing. And you would get a veteran. You would get a guy who has produced at a reasonable rate throughout his entire career. He's not a great player. He's not a bad player. He's just kind of a rank and file NFL receiver. There's a guy here in the chat just trying to say, well, Damon, you're wrong. There's all kinds of rookies that have played well. Like Brandon Aiyuk played as a rookie. Yeah, well, he was in the doghouse for an awful lot of that year. And he said McGlinchey played as a rookie, not a wide receiver. Hufanga played as a rookie, not a wide receiver. Brown played as a rookie, not a wide receiver. Bosa played as a rookie, not a wide receiver. Jake Moody played as a not a wide receiver. Wide receiver. You're missing the key ingredient to what I'm saying. Kyle Shanahan is really hard on rookie wide receivers. It's why you haven't seen one of them make a singular difference, really, in the now 8th year that Kyle is going to be the head coach of this team. So,
Well, and it's not just Kyle. That is true, but it's not. It's true, but it's not the point. The point is that rookie wide receivers are faced with far more intricacies. Now, for every Puka Nakua, there's 25 guys that are. Jerry Rice wasn't great as a rookie. I mean, outside of Randy Moss, Puka Nakua, and a couple of guys, rookie receivers struggle when they come into the NFL. Why? Because the intricacies of the offense are incredible. The coverage of the corners is like the greatest corner they go up against all year in college is every week. And it's just, there's a lot of adjustments. So you see receivers who have kind of pedestrian first years, and then they have bust out second years.
Right.
And if you're saying, why is there potential first round interest in Aiyuk? It's partly because rookie receivers struggle a little bit. And if your job's on the line, or you think it may be on the line, and your team needs a receiver, you can go into the draft and take a rookie. You might, but it might be 2 years from now and somebody else will be coaching or being the GM. So I think that's the value of
interested, right? The Steelers have been drifting around the let's bring in a rookie to do it, either a quarterback or wide receiver, for enough years now where they're kind of stuck. And they just bring in Russell Wilson and they trade for Justin Fields. So they think, all right, the quarterback that we're going to be playing over the next couple of years is in the room right now. We just got to figure out who that is. And now we need an experienced wide receiver, not a guy to just grow and develop, but a guy who can come in right now and play. And that's why the Aiyuk to Pittsburgh rumors, which came up a couple weeks ago, weren't unfounded or unreasonable. So made sense.
I mean, they've got George Pickens. They've since added Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, but they've got, a 2022 second round pick in George Pickens. They got a 2022 fourth round pick in Calvin Austin. They've got a pretty young duo there, and they wanted a veteran group. Why? Because it's, you don't get forever in the NFL. And I'm sure, Mike Tomlin's a great coach, but they haven't won a playoff game in like 5 years. So, Jacksonville, there's a lot of talk that Atlanta has interest. We'll find out. I wonder, as we start about talking about Diggs, how, what's the reaction to the Diggs trade? Does everybody say, you know what, I'll give you a 2? And it sounds like the Niners are going to stop listening after the first round. But there was a report yesterday saying that the Niners are going to wait until see who's on the board so they can get their player. So who knows? Maybe if there's a player on the board that they love at the top of the second round, maybe they'll be willing to move Aiyuk for a second round pick. We'll see.
Well, it's going to be fascinating, man. This is such a big offseason for the 49ers. They're at a little bit of a fork in the road in their own identity, who they were, who they still want to be. They got players that they like that it's tough to say goodbye to. And there are an awful lot of intriguing players, like you were saying, Larry, in this upcoming draft. And I was reading today in Bleacher Report, just a list of possible moves that will present themselves to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in this upcoming draft. And I want to get into just some of the machinations of what could actually happen here. Ironically, the last time the 49ers had the NFL's 31st pick in the draft, they traded up to 25 to select
Brandon Aiyuk.
That's right, Brandon Aiyuk. It cost them a number 31 and the number 117 pick, a fourth rounder and a fifth rounder coming in at 176. So San Francisco currently has 10 picks in the upcoming draft. Let's talk about maybe moving up from 31. I agree.
They moved up from 31 to 25.
Right.
That. So the team that was trading with them moved back 6 spots and got a fourth and a fifth.
Right.
That's not bad. I mean, I'll say this: I'd be willing to make that move backwards for a fourth and a fifth. We'll see.
You mean get the picks?
I'm saying, if the 49ers decided at 31 they wanted a player that was, so, projected to go in the 40s. Like I really like some of these players like Rook or I like Michael Hall quite a bit from Ohio State. I really like Malachi Corley. I think Blake Corum's really good. I think linebacker is much more of a need, and I love Cedric Gray. All those guys are projected to go somewhere between, let's say, 35 and 50, and they're at 31. If they move back 5 spots and got a 4th and a 5th, I think that would be a smart maneuver for them.
So if you're talking about like Graham Barton or Amarius Mims or Tyler Guyton, some of the premier late first round projection offensive linemen, one of the things that Bleacher Report was talking about was getting up to 26. The number 26 overall pick could be an ideal trade target for the 49ers for a couple of reasons. The Niners are going to be in the market for an offensive lineman, and a run on second tier of interior players could happen in the later part of the first round. To move up to 26 would, in a trade with Tampa Bay, would put the 49ers in front of the Arizona Cardinals at number 27, and the Cardinals can be looking offensive line in this draft too. So it would be jumping in front of a division rival to get a player that you think they might snake from you. A move up could land a player like Duke's Graham Barton at 26. It would involve one or two of the 49ers' 4th round picks, and the trade proposal from Bleacher Report to move up to 26 in Tampa Bay would be number 31, 124, and 132 to Tampa Bay for 26. So would you be willing to give 2 day 2 picks to move up 5 spots on day 1?
No. The way the draft is shaped, it's a top 12, top 15 kind of a draft, and then everybody's the same until like the 4th round. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I definitely would not do that. The only way I would consider doing that is if a blue chip guy fell. I don't view Graham Barton, who's a center guard, as a blue chip player. Guyton I like a lot. Mims is, I think, a little bit of fool's gold. I mean, you're talking about
Larry. That's my guy.
I know, but I mean, he looks great, but he doesn't play. I mean, it's like saying, "Hey, I want to hire a talk show host." Okay, great. Tell me about him. Well, he's only done 12 shows. I don't know why. Why has he only done 12 shows? Well, he's had this and that and this and that. It's like after a while you realize this is, you got to show up for work every day. So I'm a little, Mims looks awesome, but I gotta, he could be awesome. He could be a major whiff. This is where you got to really lean on your scouts. Of that group, I like Guyton the most. I think he's plug and play at right tackle. He played right tackle this year. He's a good run blocker. But even so, trading up at that point, the only guy that I would be interested in trading up for are those 2 top guys, J.C. Latham and Talieisi Fuaga. If you can't get those 2 guys, I'm not trading up for a tackle for sure.
The other suggestion from Bleacher Report is you slide up 3 slots to number 28, which would be less punitive in terms of what you'd have to give up to move up. A move to number 28 would be significant because it would put the 49ers ahead of the Detroit Lions, who, unlike the Cardinals, should worry the 49ers a little bit in terms of, potential playoff opponent. You just saw him in last year's NFC title game. The proposed trade would be the 49ers flip number 31 and 94 to Buffalo for number 28. Would you be willing to come off 94 to move up 2 spots?
No, absolutely not.
Well, again, it's hard to ask these questions because we don't know who's available. Availability and player that might have fallen changes the answers to these questions, right? We're just talking numbers and what the value is, but we don't know who the target would be that they were chasing. So it's a little tough to do this segment.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm thinking of is you're giving away the player that appears on the mocks in 94, and a lot of the mocks that I've done, that player's a really good player. So I'm not trading a really good player to move up 2 spots and I'm trying to think like who could potentially fall that would actually really intrigue me. And like Latham is one. Maybe Latu, the edge rusher from UCLA, but I mean he's got all kinds of injuries and there's concerns there.
What about Jordan Morgan, the
No.
offensive lineman from Arizona?
Don't like him at all. I mean,
Don't like him at all.
No, don't like him at all. He's a guard. He's not a tackle. He's got short arms. There's never been a tackle with his arm length that's ever made the Pro Bowl. I mean, my son Kev did a whole tweet on this a few weeks ago where it's like, that the average arm length of an NFL tackle is quite a bit longer than Morgan. Niners have always been a long-armed advocates, and then you look at the fact that there's like no short-arm tackle that's ever made the Pro Bowl.
So you're calling him Stumpy and taking him off your board, huh? Sorry, Stumpy.
I'm saying like if I needed a guard, I think Jordan Morgan's not a bad pick in the middle of the second round. But the idea that you would take this guy as an offensive tackle, I think is nope. Don't like it. Don't like the idea of it. To me, it's low end. It's like you did this before. It was called Mike McGlinchey. You went with a low end right tackle with some movement, questions at the 9th pick overall. I mean, it's like, why? Because he was safe and he went to Notre Dame and this and that. It's like you gotta draft big time guys. I mean, so what happened? You didn't give McGlinchey that second contract. You moved off of him. Why? Because you pretended he was a first round pick on draft day, but then he showed you over his career that he wasn't a first round pick, that he was more like a second or third round pick. And then you replaced him with Colton McKivitz, who's a 5th round pick, and you really didn't lose anything for it. So you can't, the fastest way to get to irrelevancy in the NFL is take your highest picks and take these small swings and trying to go for the safe angle. It just doesn't work.
Instead of taking maybe the 4th or 5th offensive lineman off the board, maybe you're taking one of the 1st or 2nd corners off the board. Maybe a guy like Ennis Rakestraw, the cornerback out of Missouri, the corner safety hybrid. I'm blanking on his name, out of Iowa.
Cooper DeJean.
Thank you very much. It's like a mustard. DeJean. Maybe that is the player that the 49ers think, all right, well, we would move up 1 or 2 picks just to get that guy because we now think he's the best guy on our board. The other thing that, again, this is just what Bleacher Report was throwing out in terms of potential trades. The 49ers, if they want to move into the first part of day 2 to take a player who unexpectedly fell into the second round, the 49ers could take a package and a handful of their day 3 selections to move up for their own, and also keep their own second round selection. Like the Houston Texans, they got a pick in the 5th or 6th round. They could be a target at 42. That's a pick that was acquired by the Minnesota Vikings. Houston also picks at 59 and not completely lose out on a second round deal with the 49ers if they were thinking about moving, just looking at targets to maybe move up. If you want to get really aggressive at the top of the second, would you be willing to
what does it cost? What's the cost?
Don't have a specific cost. This is more of a theoretical, just moving up to the top of that second round. You got, the Houston is sitting there with multiple picks, including a Minnesota Viking pick, which I think might have just gotten moved today in the Stefon Diggs deal.
Yeah, I mean, but the idea of keeping your second and using your other picks to move up in the second round, now that's kind of intriguing. I mean, like, for example, if you decided, okay, I want to get, 3 or 4 great players out of this draft, and you really, really like I love Max Melton from Rutgers, the corner.
Yeah.
You could get him probably comfortably in that second round.
By the way, that's a name that I didn't even see like a couple weeks ago. His name is all over mock drafts now.
Well, he ran 4.37 at the combine, and the Niners have, I guess, met with him like 5 or 6 times. He's Bo Melton's brother. So, I mean, there's that football family. You kind of know what you're getting. He's incredibly physical, but he ran 4.37. So you're getting a physical corner who also has that long speed to run down the field, and he's super tenacious and in great disposition to play the corner. So, I mean, Max Melton is a really intriguing player. I mentioned I love Rook Aurora from Clemson. I think he could be a high second round pick. I really think Michael Hall is a tremendous player. He could be a high second round pick. Braden Fisk could be a high second round pick. Jeremiah Trotter and Cedric Gray, two of the better linebackers. Here's the one question. Where do the 49ers need to find starters in this draft? You said, where do they need to find a starter? And that's an interesting one because it's like, okay, well, wait a second. Let's take out their depth chart and break it down for a second. They don't need a starter at quarterback. They don't necessarily need a starter at running back or fullback or tight end.
Well, we're talking about
as it sits right now, they don't need a starter at wide receiver, but they very well could. So maybe wide receiver.
Well, look, due to injuries to Hufanga and Greenlaw, it feels like, edge, outside linebacker, safety that's probably where this conversation starts, right?
Well, I don't know about edge. I mean, they got Bosa, Matir Gross-Matos, Leonard Floyd. Then they also have Beal, Drake Jackson, Austin Bryant.
Whatever
they need a starter there. They're going to start Floyd and Bosa.
Right. Well, I mean,
maybe Floyd. Maybe Floyd is your third down guy. Maybe you draft a starter at defensive end and bring. There was a mock last night that had the Niners taking the Missouri kid and at defensive end in the draft, and then turning around and starting him. I think they list him as a 5 technique. I think in the mock draft, Darius Robinson, who's like 280 pounds, right? They said maybe they'll draft Darius Robinson, start him opposite Bosa, and play Leonard Floyd, strictly on pass rushing downs. So that could be a need. I mean, that could be a spot where they need a starter. But I mean, if you look closer, they may need a starter at linebacker. If there's no Dre Greenlaw, you got Devondre Campbell, but isn't he your strong side guy? So unless you're going to plan on starting D. Winters or Jalen Graham, you could make an argument that the Niners badly need a starter at linebacker. And then at safety, is Mooney Ward ready to play? I mean, is Hufanga ready to play? And if Hufanga's not ready to go physically, you may need a starter at safety. And if you don't want to start Ambry Thomas, you may need a starter at corner. So, I mean, it's like we look at them and say, well, they need offensive line. Okay, and they need defensive line. And then, but in reality, if they're looking for a starter, they may need a linebacker.
I mean, I don't know I don't know if they have a true starting need.
Because maybe linebacker. I mean, where's Dre Greenlaw? Who's going to replace Dre?
Well, but I mean, by week 3 or 4, he's back in the mix, right?
I don't think so.
You hope.
I mean, I really don't think so. You're talking about a guy who tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. I mean, I would say it's a very high likelihood that he's not back until at least the middle of the year. But I don't know. Modern medicine, we'll see.
Yeah. Can you cobble it together for 7-8 weeks of football with what you already got, with depth that you already have, with a player that you might draft, not to be a starter, but just to play? Look, Azeez Al-Shaair probably screwed up their plans a little bit when he decided to go to Houston, right? I mean, I think they wanted him back, and they just, underestimated his market a little bit?
I mean, he's just coveted. He's a coveted player, and maybe he wanted to go somewhere where he could be the starter long term, where maybe with the Niners, he felt like Dre's coming back. I don't know. It seemed like it made all the sense in the world to bring him back, but maybe he was slightly outside their budget. But I mean, to me, Cedric Gray in the high second round is going to be a very, very good player. I mean, that's a slam dunk. And there's good linebackers later in this draft as well. But I mean, to me, if you're looking for a day one starter, you could probably plug in Cedric Gray right there. Now, people think, oh, they don't need a linebacker. I would beg to differ on that. Grant Cohn and I talked about this on the stream last week. He was talking about linebacker. Look at the linebackers. You got Greenlaw, who's hurt. You got Warner, who's, putting some age on. You're one Warner injury away from a disaster. Then you have Devondre Campbell, decent player, but I think he's more of a replacement for Oren Burks. You got Flanagan Fowles, special teamer. Ezekiel Turner, who's a 218-pound special teamer. Curtis Robinson, special teamer. And then you've got D. Winters and Jalen Graham. Graham couldn't get on the field as a rookie. I really like him, but, that's speculative. And Winters, is also kind of speculative. So I'm not saying that they have no talent, the cupboard's bare. What I'm saying is that I don't know, that like somebody's got to start there. And if you really think about it, this last year, the 49ers run D leaned heavily on Greenlaw and Warner. So now, that whoever's going to step in for Greenlaw is going to be expected to not just play, but lead the defense and make 10 tackles a day, a game. And it's going to be, you're asking a lot out of that linebacker. That's all I'm saying. So we'll see. But I think, right now you're going to play Sunday. You need a starter. Where do you need a starter? You need a Greenlaw replacement, and you may need another safety, and you may need an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. So it's amazing, because when we talk about the draft in March and April, early April, we have one idea. And then when we get to draft day, you realize the Niners have other ideas. One year we were talking, oh, they're going to get a safety. They didn't even draft a safety. One year we're talking, oh, they got to go O-line. They didn't even draft an O-lineman. So, I'm not saying that they're right, because sometimes they're wrong, but their thinking and our thinking sometimes mesh and sometimes don't. Sometimes it doesn't mesh.
Like and subscribe. It's Wake Up with Damon and Larry, a little midweek edition here. We're back at Friday morning, 8:30 a.m. West Coast time. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays is when we get going. And again, it's been a little bit of a slow boil leading up to what we're going to have, getting more and more headlines, more and more mocks, more and more rumors and innuendo and names coming out of nowhere. It feels like one of the names that is being, thrown about with wildly differing appearance, just what people think of him, is Lad McConkey, the wide receiver from Georgia. Now, again, we love talking about wide receivers. They catch the ball. It's a sexy diva position. But I don't know. Like you said, only, what do you do? Do you produce? Only 2 touchdowns out of him.
I mean, he's a great guy. I mean, and he's a great route runner. But he's only 6 feet, 185. He did run in the 4.3s. He's going to give you everything he's got. I mean, there's no question about that. But if you look closely at the production, now granted, Georgia's loaded, so maybe that's part of it, but he doesn't have awesome production. Like, if you go look at his game log, you're not going to see a guy who's just lighting it up every week.
Target catch.
Yeah. I mean, is that Georgia? I mean, or is that McConkey? I don't know, but I don't want to draft a guy just because he ran 4.37 at the combine. And, it's like, everybody's got a different feeling on these prospects, and you got to kind of figure out, what's real, what's not real. But I would say that McConkey is a great complimentary receiver. If but he's more like a 2nd or 3rd round pick, maybe a late 2nd round pick. People are talking about him in the 1st. I don't know. I can't see that. He runs great for the stopwatch, and he's made some really nice plays. But man, 2 touchdowns. 2. I mean, put it in perspective. The LSU kid has, 17 touchdowns this
Right.
year. So that's that's the concern. That's the concern right there. Is
Must
that you
add more touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to score touch. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be a all world touchdown guy, but he scored once against Florida State, one rushing touchdown. He scored one receiving touchdown against Florida, one receiving touchdown against Ole Miss. So he has 3 total touchdowns on the year. He's only got one. Also, if you're going to take a player like this, don't you want to use him as, probably on special teams? He only had 1 kick return all year. So he's not a prolific kick returner. He didn't do it as a runner. He only had 100-yard day as a receiver. It was against Florida. He only had 2 touchdowns all year. I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of people falling in love with Lad McConkey. And he's got good hands, but I don't know. I'm a little worried about guys who don't produce.
How about this? Let's just forget about the first 3 rounds of this draft. Take your first, your second, your third, or maybe your first, your third, your fourth, and you just flip them to Denver for a corner like Patrick Surtain. What if we just did that? What if we just made this a really easy exercise and you're not betting on what a professional career might look like out of a guy who's never played a snap? You take a guy who's a Pro Bowl caliber, lockdown corner, and that's it. That's your draft. You take your first 3 picks or whatever combination you got, and you turn him into a lockdown corner and just be done with it.
I mean, I like the idea. I don't know if I would want to trade all the picks in this year's draft. Maybe, looking at what the Chiefs got for Snead, the Chiefs got a 7th this year and a 3rd next year. If you could make a deal where you got, you gave them your 2 and your 3 from next year and maybe a 3 this year, something like that, or a 2 this year, maybe 2 2s and a 3 or 2 3s and a 2, something like that. I'd be willing to do it. Why? Because you're in your Super Bowl window, and Surtain is a difference maker, and it's really hard to find. The Niners don't need a corner. The Niners need a number 1 corner.
Right.
They have 7 corners right now. They're pretty deep on the corner as we sit here. What they need is that guy that says, Ambry Thomas, you're playing off the bench. They have Mooney Ward. They have Demo Lenore. They need, if you're going to say, what did the Chiefs have that the Niners didn't have? They had McDuffie and Snead, and they had 3 really talented corners, and it kind of snuffed out the Niners. It's great to have corner depth. You want corner depth, but you got to have that guy. So, yeah, I mean, Surtain, Greg Newsome from Northwestern, who's in Cleveland. There's a lot of talk that he may get traded. If you could get a top tier, corner that there's no risk. I mean, that's the one thing about the draft. If you go and do, and I've done this exercise before, go back and look at old drafts and look for hit rate. Man, there's a serious miss rate in the draft. It's like we talk about this guy and that guy, and there's an awful lot of busts. There's tons of busts. It's like, so you got to factor that in. And so when you're trading for a veteran like that, the bust rate goes away. There's no bust rate. You know what Surtain is. You know what Greg Newsome is. That's what those guys are going to be. That's why teams may have interest in Aiyuk, because there's no bust rate there. He's going to be Aiyuk. And you know what you're getting. So that is a big one. And that's why some teams, if they're inside their Super Bowl window, will opt to trade. And the Niners are inside their Super Bowl window. And what would you opt to trade for? For me, it would be somebody on the perimeter, like a dominating wide receiver or a dominating corner. And so Surtain, to me, makes a lot of sense. But, he's also a great player. And I'm seeing some mocks where Denver's going, Quinion Mitchell at corner to try to find another big-time corner to match with him. So I don't know their mindset. Maybe their mindset is to trade him. Maybe their mindset is to keep him.
So 2 stud corners and have absolutely no idea what you got at quarterback. That's going to be the Denver business
That could be
model.
the Denver plan. Yeah.
Okay. Good luck with that, Denver.
We won't pass on you, but you won't pass on us.
Let's just empty your holster right now. You got anything else on the Niners before we get to the other kind of NFL story that is out there this morning that I thought was kind of interesting?
Well, there's a pretty good article out right now on Niners Nation by our good friend Rohan Chakravarthy, who says it's a make or break offseason for these 5 players. And listen to these 5 players, see if you agree. Drake Jackson, who was the Niners' top pick in the 2022 draft.
Yeah, just while we're going through them, yeah, it's a huge year for Drake Jackson. It's going to be the we still believe in you or no longer believe in you season for him. So it is a big year for him.
And it's a big offseason because he's got to get stronger.
Yep.
Ambry Thomas.
I would agree. Yep.
Ambry Thomas. I mean, the Niners just signed Isaac Yiadom and Chase Lucas, and they're looking at corners in the draft and this and that.
I like Ambry Thomas more than most. I really do. I almost can't even defend it at times, but I think, he makes a lot of plays for a guy who doesn't make a lot of plays at the same time. So I still believe there's a player to be found in Ambry Thomas, but it's a put up or shut up season for him too.
Yeah, I mean, he makes you hold your breath. Spencer Burford, looked good as a rookie, but didn't look as good as a second year player.
I believe in Spencer Burford. I think he's going to have a monster year. I think he's your starting right guard all year.
Cam Latu. Cam Latu is the tight end that the Niners took in the 3rd round last year. They put him on IR before the season started. He struggled and badly to catch the ball. I wonder how much of it was due to just thinking too much. But the Niners are, signing Brock Wright. They're probably looking for a tight end in the draft.
Look, it can't be a make or break year for a guy who hasn't even proven that he can do it for an inch. You know what I mean? So, let's just see if he can get on the field. That would be a make year for him. Can you dress on game day? That's where it starts for him. So I don't even have him on my list of guys to keep an interesting eye on. Who knows what happens with him?
Well, he should be. He was a 3rd round draft choice, and he's if he can beat out Braden Willis, he's probably going to make the team. And then there's Jake Moody. Jake Moody, 3rd round pick. Made some big kicks, missed a bunch of kicks. Hit 84% of his field goals, 98.4% of his PATs. He ranked 20th in field goal percentage last year. So, I mean, the Niners, I don't know if the one thing I don't want to see them do in this draft is I don't want to see them draft another goddamn kicker.
They're not gonna. I think Jake Moody's got the job. I think he deserves a year 2 based on the year 1, which was better than a lot of people want to say it was. To me, he's not even I'm not even worried about him. Really. I'm not. I'm just not worried about him. And I don't think they're going to be looking at any element of special teams in this draft.
The other thing is that with the new return game, the return rules, there may be, some room for a returner. I mean, Danny Gray had this car thing again this week where he was, involved in this speeding thing. It just seems like Danny Gray's not going to come of age. And then if you've watched some of the highlights of the new returns, the way it's projected and the way they're doing it in this XFL combo league, it almost looks like you want a running back, like an extra running back who can potentially be that return guy. And maybe Blake Corum, that's another guy that I really like in this draft from Michigan. Maybe he's their guy, but it's like teams, are you going to sit back and wait for the rules to kind of define themselves and see how it all plays out and then adjust in year 2? Or are you going to prepare yourself with the kind of player who you think can return, at a high level for your team this year?
I think this is almost where they have to go and ask Deebo Samuel to do this. Like, Deebo, your value as a number 1 wide receiver is undefined. As a running back, you have absolutely taken massive steps backwards in terms of any impact there. So we're going to look to get a little something out of you in this new hybrid kickoff. And he's really wired perfectly for it. You're looking for a guy who can break tackles and run in space. And that's what Debo does. So I would ask him almost to be the first guy up to the plate to solve this problem. And then, what's Elijah Mitchell on this team for? If you're not going to get him running back carries, get him maybe some carries there. Get him involved somehow there. Ronnie Bell, are you going to ever learn how to catch and run with a football? Maybe you're involved there. So I don't know if you need to draft a player. I think they got a few players on their team who are built for that role right now.
Well, we're going to find out. But I would say that if there is a running back or a wide receiver in this draft, and you think that they're uniquely positioned to help you with this new return game, you may want to go in that direction. That may lead you in that direction. So we're gonna find out in the next couple of weeks how the Niners look at themselves. It's like we're looking at them from the outside world. We think they need offensive line help. Do they? My guess is they think they need defensive line help. And I don't know that they do. So we'll see how it goes. But, it's interesting because like we're taking one look at their team. They're taking a different look at their team. And it's the last couple of years are proof that we don't always see it the way they see it. And so I didn't anticipate a big move for a kicker. I really didn't. And but they saw the need. They created a need a few years ago with Mitch Wishnowsky for a punter. They took him in the 4th round. So,
and he's been fabulous.
He's been really good. But I mean, my point is just that we don't know exactly how they view their needs. I think if you had said after the Super Bowl, what are they going for? Everybody would be like, a right tackle. Right. They need a right tackle. But now they've re-signed Colton McKivitz to a $7 million deal. Shanahan's said that he likes him and he's a hell of a guy. He did say that he would continue looking for offensive linemen. But, what's going to be the theme of this draft? I think we're going to find out here.
What was a need they identified that nobody saw coming? Brock Purdy. I mean, there you go. So right there, no one really expected them to come back and with the last pick in the draft, take a quarterback, but they did. And since then, things have been looking up, not down for the 49ers. By the way, speaking of Brock Purdy, did you see that his nemesis, Hassan Reddick, is not going to be lining up against him in an Eagles uniform anymore? He's now a New York Jet, and the Jets flipped a 2025 pick for Hassan Reddick, or 2026. It's like a couple of drafts down the road before they pay the piper on that one. Hassan Reddick went to Philadelphia and absolutely produced over his 2 years there, and made a play that put the Eagles into the Super Bowl when he knocked Brock out of that game. I'm surprised that the Eagles moved on from a really productive, really good player.
It's almost like a trade because the Eagles signed Bryce Huff away from the Jets, and then the Jets wind up trading for Hassan Reddick to replace Bryce Huff. So in a way, it's kind of a trade. I don't know. I mean, Hassan Reddick is a dangerous speed rusher, but man, Bryce Huff might be even better. He might be even better. And if you look at what Philly did this offseason, they got Oren Burks from the Niners, but they also added Bryce Huff, Devin White, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, all on the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, they added Paris Campbell and Devontae Parker at wide receiver. So now they have a deeper wide receiver core. Saquon Barkley as a running back. So, the Eagles, I don't know what to make of the Eagles because their pass D was so bad last year. I don't know if it's any better. They're still going to be leaning on Reed Blankenship and Bradbury and we'll see what Slay's got left and Kaylee Ringo. But I would imagine the Eagles are going to go heavy DBs in the draft.
You want to get to some starred chats here, Larry, or do you want to talk about what's going on in Kansas City?
Well, we can go star chats first. Right, Blood Moon says, I believe that Brock Purdy may take the Brady approach and ask for a very good payday, not a great payday, because he knows, like Brady did, he needs his weapons. We hope. Yeah, that would be nice if Brock took kind of a more of a middling deal so that the Niners could build around him, that would be nice.
Before you move on there, Larry, what do you think the entry point is for Brock? Like, I know, everyone is worth whatever the market is bearing in that moment. So it's not even really up to Brock as much as it is the market to determine what he's worth. And starting quarterbacks that are in MVP conversations, that's a $40 million a year job. I don't think it's absurd to think that Brock's could be looking at a $40 million a year paycheck for the 49ers. Now, I don't think you have an entry point of, okay, you're like Dak, we're starting at 50, 55, 60, and this goes to 75, like a Patrick Mahomes. I wonder what Team Purdy would ask for if they'd have any inclination to do we're going to leave a little on the table to make it easier for you, because that's what the first 3 years of the guy's career was. Like, no quarterback has already given his team more room around to wiggle a roster than Brock Purdy has given the 49ers. So I don't know if Team Purdy is going to be into doing that deal twice. If I'm Team Purdy, I'm coming back for all the money that we haven't been making while, you've been appearing in NFC title games and Super Bowls. So asking Brock to give them their hometown discount is basically like asking them to do it twice. He already has.
His agent is a guy named Kyle Strongen out of Nashville, and he's the head of football at Range Sports. And I guess Strongen brought in Purdy to Range Sports when he joined the firm in May of 2023. I don't know what Strongen's reputation is, but my guess is 45 million. That's about I think you said it right. I mean, it's about 40 million. There's going to be people guys that will make more, but I think 45 million is about what the Niners ought to prepare for, which is kind of a weird situation. I mean, it's weird because it's like you're paying the guy $1 million and then all of a sudden he's going to jump to $40 million. But that's why it's, were the Niners committed to Trey Lance? No. The Niners were committed to have a rookie at quarterback, or a quarterback on a rookie deal. But now they don't. Now they have the guy that they like, but he's not going to be on a rookie deal, and so they're going to have to draft really well. This is a huge, huge draft coming up on the 25th because of that contract. If Brock Purdy had 3 more years of club control at $1 million a year, then it wouldn't have the urgency. But because he's going to be paid probably close to $50 million, or 40 or 50, 45 times what he's making right now, you're going to have to find cap savings, and you're going to have to hit. That's why these trades where people are like, well, they don't need 13 rookies can't make it on the Niners. You're not seeing this the way it should. You should be seeing this. It's not about 13 rookies making it on this team. It's about having 13 bites of the apple to find starters that can replace guys who make big money. So I don't like any of these deals really that say, well, trade 32, 94, and 126 to move up 4 spots. No. You need those 3 players to, maybe 2 of them to be starters for you so that you can cut somebody else who's making big money. So I think if I were the Niners, I would be looking more at trade backs than trade ups.
And by the way, let's say all the dreams come true in 2024. The 49ers win this Super Bowl. Now Brock Purdy's looking at 55. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. There's almost a point where the success of winning a Super Bowl would be the blanket that ends up smothering the 49ers. They'll
take it.
By the way, you'll take it. Absolutely. You will gladly sign up to drown tomorrow for a Super Bowl to swim in today. But, oh, man, if you think Brock's expensive before he wins a Super Bowl, let him do that this year. Had Brock already won the Super Bowl, had they had beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, holy shit, that is a $60 million a year quarterback when he's up for it in 2 years from now. So,
yeah. Ricky Williams jumps in with the $9.99. He says,
Ricky.
fellas, seems like the last year of our Super Bowl window with Brock getting paid soon, you could hit the blow up button and get value picks for the next couple drafts. Would you do it and rebuild after this season? No, I would not. I would not. I would there. I mean, you just have to do it the old fashioned way. You have to do it by drafting. You're not going to do it with some bonanza trade. You're not going to do it with some unbelievable free agent signing. It's going to have to be consistent, good evaluation. Good Kunst for Green Bay. Supposedly they were going to be in a world of hurt. They're building up right now. The Rams with Les Snead after Aaron Donald and all the big name guys, Ramsey, they won a Super Bowl. They were going to be in cap hell. Well, they're building up. So how are these teams doing it? They're doing it in the draft. So, is he suggesting get value picks for the next? Is he suggesting? Am I reading this right or wrong? Is he suggesting they trade Brock? No. Are you getting trade Brock out of this?
Hit the blow up button for that's the thing. I guess, you're never in full rebuild mode if you believe you got your quarterback.
Right. You just keep building. And the Niners they're not the Rams. They don't love to blow it up and then, we'll check back in 3 years. They like to go for it every year. Now there's going to be, some give and take on this roster as time goes on, but I think their belief is that they can find guys on day 3 of the draft and after the draft to help them kind of, handle these rough waters. Elanta 3 says Kyle and Lynch drafted 2 linebackers last year, and here we are still talking about drafting the position. Not to mention we drafted 2 tight ends that missed. The team is draft impaired, and it's about to come home.
They're not draft impaired. Now talk about all the other. I mean, you just hand selected a list of guys that didn't work out. Now go ahead and pick the list of guys who went to the Pro Bowl this year. They drafted them pretty much across the board. You know what I mean? So, that is really hand selecting from the buffet of complaints.
Well, I mean, I think you could make an argument. I mean, if you look at the John Lynch draft history here, that they've got to start hitting on their first and second and, day 1, day 2 picks, much more so than they have.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just do a quick review. Day 1, day 2 picks for Lynch. Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, Ahkello Witherspoon, CJ Beathard. That's 2017, day 1, day 2. Day 1, day 2, 2018. Mike McGlinchey, Dante Pettis, Fred Warner, Tarvarius Moore. They're now 1 for 8 in that group. Maybe 2 for 8 if you want to give McGlinchey.
Yeah, McGlinchey started, man. I mean,
okay. 2019 draft: Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd, Mitch Wishnowsky. That one was the winner.
Right.
They got 3 out of 4 there.
My mom could have drafted Nick Bosa, by the way.
2020 Kinlaw and Aiyuk. Only 2 picks in the first 3 rounds. So you didn't have a lot of volume there, but you hit on 1. You went 50%. 2021, Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Ambry Thomas. If Ambry doesn't come of age, you may have gone 1 for 4 there. And it's even worse than that because you traded multiple ones to get Lance. 2022 draft, Drake Jackson, Ty Davis Price, Danny Gray. It's not looking too good. Round this year, Jair Brown, Jake Moody, Cam Latu. So I think the thing that can be said is that John Lynch has done a pretty spotty job in day 1 and day 2 of the draft. They've made up for it by hitting on Kittle and hitting on DJ Jones and hitting on Talanoa Fonga and finding Brock Purdy. And you know what I mean? They've made up for it a lot by what they've done in day 3. But they've got to do a better job on day 1 and day 2 of having a higher hit rate and more star players, or there is going to be a backslide, and they're going to have to look up at Detroit and Green Bay and some of these other teams. So I would say, the linebackers they drafted last year, Yeah, there's Jalen Graham and D Winters. I like them both. I like Graham more. The two tight ends, I don't love either of them. There's a hit factor, there's a miss factor on these draft choices, which is why it's really, really vital. Also, we're going to find out without Adam Peters going to, with him now in Washington, with Rand Carthon now in Tennessee, with Martin Mayhew now in Washington. We're going to find out, who's really good at drafting in this Niner group. Was it Lynch or was it these guys? Because,
the thing is, too, it's just. So you have one, let's say this year you had a really good draft. That doesn't mean you're going to do anything in the next draft that is remotely close. Like one draft does not lend itself to another. Like every single one of these guys is a hit or miss prospect. You got no real inclination of what a college career means to a professional career. That nothing proves that you can play in this league until you actually come and do it. So it's just such an inexact science. And to score each and every decision as, this is your definitive, what you believed in this moment, dude, you got to get lucky along the way. And you got to get lucky in the first round too. And you can't be unlucky over and over again in your first few rounds. And they have been a little bit. Still through all of it, they've fielded nothing but wildly respected, well-built football teams. The 49ers have been a league leader in depth and roster envy for years now. So even as we get into the granular, this was a miss, this was a hit, we like this, we didn't like that, the overall product over the last 5 years has been pretty damn good, even with the misses, right?
Well, I think it's safe to say that the Niners probably have some great scouts because they do a nice job on day 3. Day 3 in the Lynch era, Brock Purdy, Demo Lenore, Talanoa Hufanga, Elijah Mitchell, Jawan Jennings, Colton McKivitz, Charlie Warner, Dre Greenlaw, DJ Reed, and George Kittle, DJ Jones. That's kind of a lot for day 3, and it doesn't include the Azizes or any of the undrafted free agents, Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, some of those guys that they kind of hit on as well. So they've done a really good job on day 3. They've missed a lot on day 1 and day 2. If they can stop missing on day 1 and day 2, and continue to hit on day 3, they should be able to continue to run with Detroit, Philly, Green Bay, all the powers that are growing up inside their conference, as well as, the best teams in the league. So, I also think the Niners have done a really good job in free agency at projecting who they want to keep and having a really good game plan in free agency. So, all these things factor together. They're all part of one big pie.
Any other thing?
We got a couple more here. We got Blood Moon. Blood Moon says, "What a miss on Cordero Patterson. Could have used his punt return ability." Yeah.
Was he a question? Steelers or Falcons sign him? Steelers.
He went from the Falcons to the Steelers.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, Cordero. Greg Argisi, is Brock Wright, the tight end, now a 49er? Detroit 5 days to match. Tomorrow is the day.
Go day.
If they don't match, and it's funny, some people think they're going to match. I don't. I think they'll probably let him go. He's not a star player. They have Matt Laporta, who is a star player at that position. But we'll see. We'll find out tomorrow. And I think this is a draft where the Niners are going to sign, like, if you said, what are the Niners going to do going into the draft? I think they're going to sign one veteran tight end. If it's this guy, then it will be this guy. If it's not this guy, it'll be somebody else. And then I think they'll draft one. And then I think the same thing at safety. They'll sign some veteran safety of whatever degree, and then draft one or two. Come the 25th weekend. So that's what I'm seeing. Safety and tight end, I think, are the areas that they want to kind of bolster before the draft.
Anything else?
That's pretty much it on the Niner front. I did watch a ESPN show last night called The Draft Featured, and the one guy, and I've been touting this guy a little bit, is Blake Corum. Now the Niners don't need Blake Corum on paper, right? On paper,
Running
they've
back from
got
Michigan.
yeah, they've got Christian McCaffrey, they've got Elijah Mitchell, they've got Jordan Mason, but running backs have been pushed so far down the board now that you may not see any running backs drafted in the first round. There may not be any running backs drafted in the first round and a half.
I could see Harbaugh surprise everybody with a late first rounder or an early second rounder on him.
Maybe a lot of people think Dallas may go for Blake Corum as well. They're in need of a running back, but if Blake Corum is on the board, to me, this is a phenomenal player. This is a guy he's a great person. He's a great player.
You're not talking 31, are you?
No, but
okay.
I'm not 31.
Okay.
I'm talking more like in the 60s.
Okay.
Or even in the 90s. Like if he was there on the board in the 80s, I would literally trade up for this guy because I think he's a star. I think he's a real superstar back. He can catch it, he can run it. He's built low to the ground. He's very compact. He can take punishment. He's a great high character guy. He is the kind of guy that is your total leader. And if you drafted a guy like this, maybe you could move an Elijah Mitchell or a Jordan Mason later in the draft for some 5th or 6th round pick. I'm not saying that I'd be in a rush to do that. And it's not, they have other concerns, but I mean, man, I see a special player.
What I would want, though, is for this team to draft another player that Kyle Shanahan spends the entire regular season convincing himself he doesn't trust or cannot play.
Yeah, but I think this is the guy that could be your return guy. This is a guy who could, if you say, well, how are they going to get by without, Aiyuk or Debo if they wind up moving these guys? Well, one way is to flex out Christian McCaffrey and use him as a receiver. And to me, I'll just say this: from 60 on, or 50 on, let's say, you're outside the top 50 picks, you will not regret drafting Blake Corum because he's that elusive, he's that tough, he's high character. I hate to say it, I see a little bit of Emmitt Smith, and Emmitt Smith is one of the great running backs in the history of the NFL. I see a really, really special player. And if you wanted to say to me, if you wanted to ask, what's the key to the Detroit Lions? I think that the key to the Detroit Lions has been that they have targeted great college players who had great college production, who they think are special and they've plucked them. I mean, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and you look at Sam Laporta, and then you look at the defensive back that they drafted, Brian Branch, and then obviously Aiden Hutchinson with the 2nd pick in the draft. But they've gone for some truly great college players, and some of them, like, there are people going, "Oh man, they reached on Jahmyr Gibbs." Well, they weren't saying that at the end of the year. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs almost vaulted them into the Super Bowl. So, I would just start to take Detroit's, instead of just being like, hey, we need a running back. Who's the best running back on the board? Hey, we need a D lineman. Who's the best? Have a little bit more conviction and maybe don't handicap the entire draft as much as really get a good feeling on 6 or 7 guys that you love. And then you come away with a draft where you're like, wow, we got foundational, roster altering type talent. And that's what Detroit's done. Yeah.
There's your boy.
Doesn't matter if you have 1 ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Yeah.
That's the man. That's the model NFL franchise that everyone is now trying to copy. Do you see that the Detroit Lions are going to be flashing some new uniforms this year at us, Larry? They're keeping the Honolulu blue, and they're keeping the silver, obviously, but apparently they're going to have some new unis. The Denver Broncos, I believe, are flashing that they're teasing. They're going to have some new unis. Now, to me, the Denver Broncos just need to go back to the powder blue helmets. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The uniform thing I think is a loser to change too much, because so much of the branding of the NFL is the most popular sport. The branding is so integral to what they do. If you're going to change anything about what you do, man, you better be damn sure that you're upgrading. Otherwise, it's like,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if I would do it.
Well, it's where we really are. We're rooting for laundry. Whoever said that about sports, particularly football, was right. We're rooting for laundry. You put any player in the jersey that you like the most, you're going to be like, God, that's a good looking player.
and it's like they're iconic. It's an iconic look. I mean, whether it's the Raiders, the Steelers, the Bills, the Niners, the Rams, it's like, when the Rams won with Kurt Warner and they kind of changed their yellow to kind of gold, I mean, that wasn't as good of a look. And when the Niners changed their red and to like kind of a weird maroon and added black, and it's like it's not good. They always wind up going back. Have you noticed that? Everybody always winds up going back to the original. So
I'm telling you, what's the hottest been parked on the sideline for far too long uniform out there? If I'm the Seahawks, I'm going back to like Steve Largent Seahawks, the old Seahawk helmet, the old blue and green jerseys. I would bring that back. Obviously, we saw the Tennessee Titans rock those old Houston Oiler unis, which were just glorious to see again. Those are gorgeous uniforms.
Miss the Oilers. Yeah, the Oilers had great unis. They had great unis. Unfortunately, they're no longer in. Like Houston, is now the Texans. It's kind of weird that the Oilers went to Tennessee, and now that their color scheme went with them to Tennessee, but the logos all changed. But now there's a team in Houston, but they don't have the same color scheme as the Oilers, and they probably never will, or they'll never use it. The team that I would like to see, go back would be, I think the Eagles should go back to their regular green, and I think the Dolphins. The Dolphins had these beautiful uniforms in the 70s with the teal jerseys, and they kind of went away from that. So I would like to see the Dolphins go back to the old school, and Philly go back to the old school.
Right, like the aquamarine. Give me back the old helmet too. Get rid of the modern Dolphin. Bring back the old Dolphin with the M single bar chin strap Dolphin on the side of the helmet. Give me the Dan Marinos.
Well, I'll tell you another uniform that would be really popular in today's NFL, even though it's kind of synonymous with losing because they were so shitty during those years. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the
the cream skulls.
The cream skulls. I mean, that's a great look. It just, they were a bad team, and so they want to like escape it.
I did think though their rebrand to the whole like darker red and pewter, whatever that was, like they did a good job with the rebrand.
Well, they won a Super Bowl with it,
right?
If they hadn't won a Super Bowl, I'd also like to see the Falcons go back to their kind of, they went with the red a little bit more than their
red helmets.
Yeah. I mean, the one that, those are the ones really that stick out as far as unis.
So in a headline that I thought kind of stuck out a little, only because it wasn't really what I was expecting, was the story today that Missouri voters have basically told the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals, if you want a new stadium, piss off. You go ahead and you buy it yourselves. You do it yourselves. The future of the Royals and Chiefs in Kansas City was thrown into question last night when residents of Jackson County, Missouri, resoundingly voted down a sales tax measure that would have helped fund a new downtown ballpark along with major renovations for Arrowhead Stadium. The Royals, who had pledged at least $1 billion from their ownership group for the project, wanted to use their share of the tax revenue to help fund a $2 billion plus ballpark district downtown. The Super Bowl champion Chiefs had committed $300 million in private money and would have used their share as part of an $800 million overhaul to Arrowhead Stadium. By the way, Arrowhead just had a huge multiple million, hundreds of $1 million overhaul, and they didn't do the locker rooms. And a lot of Chiefs fans or players just said, the facilities suck. They gave the Chiefs terrible grades in their NFL let's grade our team that we play for report card that we just saw. But here you go. You got Chiefs president Mark Donovan saying, we'll do whatever's in the best interest for our organization moving forward. You got Royals owner John Sherman saying we're deeply disappointed. Our steadfast belief is that Jackson County is better with the Chiefs and the Royals. So you got a real Midwestern town telling a couple billionaires, screw off. We're not paying for it. And we almost dare you to move. Because where would you move? Where would the Kansas City Chiefs do better than right here in Kansas City? And where are the Royals going now that Vegas is being handed to the dumbest owner on the planet? So it's like, congratulations, Missouri. You didn't fall for the okie doke, and you shouldn't.
Well, I mean, we're just seeing this is a trend nationwide where we're seeing municipalities push back on taxpayer money being contributing to renovations of sports stadiums.
Well, again, these billionaires want private. They want to subsidize the construction costs, but privatize all of the profits.
Right. Which and how many of these deals wind up being winners for the communities? But at the same time, if these communities lose these teams, the financial fallout is significant. So that's kind of the hammer that the teams have over the cities. They'll get together on a price. I mean, they'll get together on a plan. It just means that this plan didn't work. I don't think if you said to me, what's the brass tacks on this? Are the Royals leaving Kansas City? No. Are the Chiefs leaving Kansas City? No. I mean, the Royals moved from Municipal Stadium to Kauffman Stadium in the early 70s. They renovated the ballpark in 2012. Arrowhead was built alongside Kauffman Stadium, was also renovated right around the same time, 2012, 2013. And obviously, as time goes on, all these things need to be upgraded, but there's so much money in the NFL that it's almost unsightly for, Clark Hunt to sit there and be like, buy us a stadium, pay for the renovations. There's so much money. And the NFL fiscal pie grows at such a rate that just on the growth, the Chiefs could be able to say, hey, Royals, we'll cut you the deal. We'll fund the whole thing. But obviously, nobody wants to do that. They would rather use some taxpayer money. Ultimately, I think the way this is going to get done, Damon, is I think that they will do the renovations. They will get much private money. I think this will happen with private money eventually. And I think the money that does come from the taxpayers, if there's any, will be about the infrastructure around the stadiums. So, but I mean, this is just another one of these battle royales that has to happen. And I don't think either team's leaving. Do you?
No. And what's amazing, though, is just the total reversal of direction that the state of Missouri is having on this topic. Because remember, when the Rams were getting ready to leave St. Louis, it's like the city of St. Louis approved 3 different stadiums. Yes, we'll pay for that. We'll pay for that. We'll pay for that. Whatever it takes to keep the Rams in town is what we're willing to do, said the city of St. Louis. And now on the other side of the state, you have Kansas City basically saying, no, we're not falling for this. The way that St. Louis nearly got conned into giving Kroenke everything he wanted, we're not going to let that happen. And what's amazing, though, is normally when a team wins, like the way the Kansas City Chiefs have won, that's enough to move the needle in their direction to get whatever they want. The Kansas City Chiefs are getting shot down with Super Bowl appearances underneath their belts here and Super Bowl titles and championships, and they're still getting shot down. That is just a huge change of direction from the type of, Midwestern town that you thought would be so desperate to hold on to their team that they would, be willing to make the sacrifice that, a West Coast or an East Coast team or city would not be willing to make. Like the Midwestern sort of, gets, I don't want to say simpletoned into their own funding of a stadium, but the threat of just losing the Kansas City Chiefs would be enough to make everybody in Kansas City go, okay, we're whatever you need, NFL. It's not like that anymore. Good. I'm glad that world exists.
Here's the weird part about this. I don't understand why the Chiefs and Royals wouldn't want to take this on themselves. You've got incredible passion right now for Kansas City Chief football. There's probably a little bit less passion for Royal baseball, but they just won the World Series not that long ago. There's still great tradition there. There's great passion for both those teams. Why would you want to cut in the city? Do what the Giants did. Learn from the California teams. Giants paid all, like 99% privately financed. They have paid off the mortgage. They own every person that goes through a turnstile. They're getting all that money. Every churro, they're making money on that. Everything, they're making huge money. Why would you want to cut in California? I mean, would the Giants rather be in a situation where they're sharing revenue with San Francisco, or have it all coming to themselves?
And tax dollars collected. At no point is there any, and then we share it with you. That never happens.
Well, but there are dual deals where it's their deals made, where the city and county of where the stadium's built is part of the revenue. They share in the revenue as well. I mean, there are owners that have carved out sweetheart deals for themselves. But my point is just that do it privately. It's not like opening a restaurant where you're like, will they like the food? Will they not like the food? Will they come to the restaurant? Will they not come to they're coming to the restaurant.
Right.
They're showing up, and they're going to show up, and it's a lock. So, outside of another pandemic, you're basically in a perfect status where whatever that people are going to pack your stadium, and you're eventually going to pay off the debt service on it, and then you're going to own it. And if you built this thing privately with private financing, you're going to own it in its entirety, and you're going to create your wealth that you can only dream of. So to me, the California model is the model, and it was born out of desperation in that politicians here could not get any kind of dual funding approved from the voters. And now with tough times, voters all over the country are going to be voting the exact same way. And if I own the Chiefs or the Royals, I'd be like, good. Yeah, we'll have to take some of our massive revenue, and for a few years there, we'll be dangling. But guess what? It's a lock that it's going to pay itself off, and then we're going to be the primary benefactors from these stadiums being built. So I think they ought to kind of celebrate the fact that the municipalities are flipping them the bird, and go find the richest guy in Kansas City and or whatever, or maybe Clark.
There's no amount of rich that ever means you're not interested in the free money. That's just the way it is. So
but the free money comes with entanglements on the back end. The Giants have no entanglements. They every penny they get. I mean, they're rolling right now. The Giants have been a really poorly run baseball team in the recent years. They produced like $450 million of revenue last year with one of the most boring teams of all time. Why? Because they own the ballpark, and they're sitting on the greatest real estate deal in the history of the city and county of San Francisco, and their descendants are set for life. So would you rather have, some mayor of San Francisco telling you that squabbling over payments and this and that, or would you rather own it yourself? You're going to have to take the risk up front, but you get all the benefit.
As long as they can break even, that's all I'm really rooting for those Johnsons to finally break even.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
there it is. I can't help but notice that you've got municipalities now pushing back against these teams, and it's about time. Power to the people. Let these billionaires pay for their own stadiums.
I've always said, and I continue to say what I've always said to you, Damon, who is, I gotta be honest, you were a little tough on me back in the radio days. And Lowry, you think you know football and all your questions, and you're questioning Gerald Hodges as a linebacker. I know talent. All right, I know talent, and I believe that I have talent. What? Oh, yeah. I believe that my Jaguars are going to rise up. And
I wrote it down.
If there's a player out there that has some form of an injury, some form of a weakness, I'll find it and I'll bring him to my team. That's who I am.
And we'll be back on Friday morning to get you ready for a weekend as we get closer to the NFL draft. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, wake up, and have yourselves a great Wednesday.
And one last one from the great Digital Drew, who's been a member for 14 months. Again, I have one ass cheek and 3 toes. The Manning sound offends me greatly. Your laughs cut deep. Hashtag butthurt. Hashtag
Doesn't
JK.
matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.